This is the LS003G 40 volt 12 inch 305mm Mitre Saw from Makita, and this video has been a long time coming. I've had this tool for 18 months, as many of you know, and many of you have been asking me for the review and when I'm going to do it, and finally I am about to do it. This is a tool I use almost every single day. I've been using it here for doing some hardwood decking, and as you can see, it is kept in immaculate condition. Even though it is always hooked up to the dust extractor there, it is mighty dusty still. It has fairly good dust extraction, but as you can see, there is a fair bit of dust around, but that's Mitre Saws for you. So I love this tool, so why has it taken me so long to review a tool that I love? Well, it's a little more complicated, so to find out the full story, we need to go back in time a year and a half.
I think this may be the biggest Makita I've ever purchased.
I had to change my bench around and make some special adjustments just so I could fit this on here, but it's too big, it's too heavy, it's too awkward to lift out of this box on the bench. So a little bit dusty in here. Let's see if we can just pop this off now. There we go. We are in. Oh, it's all covered in dust. Why is it covered in so much dust? How'd that happen? The blade's bigger than that entire saw. Granted, it's a pretty small circular saw, but wow. You know, this is a big Mitre Saw. Is it the quick release one? Yes, it is. Okay, cool, one of those. Dust bag, manual, whopping great 12 inch or 305mm blade, and an AWS chip. Now, when you buy it, you may not get an AWS chip. You need to look at the model numbers. This is the LS003G. That's the name of the saw. Z, because it's bare tool. Bare tool means no battery, no charger. And it's got a 01 after it. So the full name is LS003GZ01. The 01 is because of this little puppy. I'm sure there's some other goodies in the box, but they're probably hidden on the other side. They haven't gone back to an aluminium miter gauge, have they? It's punched. Oh, surely not. Not after the first Mitre Saw in the 40 volt range, which was much better than the 18 volt ones. Well, whatever it is, it ain't aluminium at least. Right, you'll have to give me a second to just drag this thing out of the box properly because it's a little bit awkward, like they say. So other things that were in the box include this invisible square, this arbor bushing, and this knob, which goes on the front. The box would have had to have been another 2 inches longer had they put the knob on in the factory. So self-install the knob. The big long thread. Right. Knob in place. She's a big old beast. I've had to move halfway down the workshop just to get it in shot. Yeah, it's hard for me to now stand over there and do the video because it's so far away. How am I going to do this? Have I done a proper beginning yet? Better do that, eh? G'day boys and girls, and welcome to another Tools and Stuff review. This is the LS003G Makita 40 volt XGT sliding compound Mitre Saw. That's quite a mouthful. That's the blade, isn't it a doozy? Let's stick it on. Oh yes, have they finally made a Mitre Saw? Have Makita finally done it so that you can undo your blade, yay, without having to release the thing? They have. You can get the wrench in there. You don't need to remove this or, you know, slide it out of the way, loosen any of these to get the blade on by the looks. Woohoo! So tool storage, as you will have just seen in the front of there. There's a pin on the back where this hand is, and that locks your blade so that you can undo it. But if this is anything like every other Makita Mitre Saw I've used, they come from the factory so ridiculously tightened up that you just about break the wrench getting the damn things open. That one wasn't too bad. Anyway, let's see if we can get all this off without having to open up the guard. Oh, don't tell me we're not going to be able to get the nut out. Come on. Come on, you little beauty. Come on. Oh, what are they doing? What are they doing? You must be kidding. Why didn't they make it so that you could get that out? It misses by like a millimeter. Is that deliberate? Do you really have to shift a guard to remove the blade? Is that some sort of weird safety thing? Because I can't see it makes any difference. And this is misses by so little. It actually gets fatter at that point, like they deliberately did it. There's nothing behind this. You could just hack that off. And that's what I might do. I won't do it just yet in case there's something wrong with this tool. So now we've got to undo this and loosen the whole damn front off. That's not that. But first one. Now I'll get something to release now in this part of the world, and I'm guessing in most parts of the world, you will get a 30mm arboured blade. But as for the amount of teeth and the sort of blade, this is an Effie cut blade, but you may not get an Effie cut blade where you are. Who knows? Tool companies provide different things in different parts of the world everywhere. Anyway, I better take this rubbery stuff off, else it's not going to fit in there. I have wanted a 12-inch Mitre saw for quite some time, but unfortunately when it came to the last Mitre saw I bought, the 36-volt one that you'll see in this video quite a bit probably, the 10-inch one, I bought that, I waited and waited and waited, and they weren't releasing a 12-inch. I bought the 10-inch and then about a month later they released the 12-inch and I was gutted. But now I finally have a 12-inch Mitre saw. Now just remember, reverse thread always can be a bit tricky when you come to try and loosen your blade off and you realise you're going the wrong way and you're just tightening the hell out of it. So opposite direction to usual. Now I've got to hold that up, push that in and do that. Why? Why? Not a huge deal, but it just seems unnecessary when it's so close to being able to be done without removing the guard. Okay. So in this video I'll compare it to the old 18x2 versions of these saws, and we'll probably do a bit of a comparison with the first 40-volt Mitre saw that most of the world got, the LS002G, the 9 1/4, is it? The 9 1/4? I've forgotten. I'll tell you why I didn't keep that saw shortly, but there's a heap of features on this thing, so I'll get stuck into that, and as I go I guess I'll compare it with what it's like compared to the other ones. The first thing that strikes me when I look at this thing is it's massive. It's a very big saw, and the thing that stands out the most to me is look at the size of these. These are huge. That is a huge back support. Let's take a look how high we are here. 140mm, or about 5.5 inches. That's pretty damn high. This might be able to cut a 6x2 on its edge. Here's my old faithful on the super tidy side of the workshop, and the dim dark over here. Let's take a look at how high this is. What's that, 120 or about 4 3/4 inches? So it's about 20mm or 3/4 of an inch taller on the new 12-inch than it is on this old 10-inch. This is the DLS 211, and I guess it would be easier if I just stuck this on the bench next to the new one, and then we can just compare them real easy just by me swiveling the camera instead of walking around here and having a look at it. Seeing as it's got to move from this position anyway, because this is where the new one will be going, and this one will be going to Rob. I'll give it a bit of a clean before I get it to you, Rob. In fact, I'll have to give it a bit of a clean now before I carry it over to the other bench. I thought this saw was big. The new one is mammoth. And did I call the 18x2 the DLS 211 a moment ago? If I did, I was wrong. That is of course the 12-inch one. This is the 10-inch, which is the 111 or the 111. Look at the size difference. It is quite a lot bigger. It's not just the blade. Everything is higher, wider, bigger, heavier than the old one there. Some of you will say, oh, it's not the 12-inch, you're not comparing it to the same thing. Well, hey, you go out and buy two 12-inch Mitre Saws just to compare them to each other. I didn't get these for free, you know. Now, I normally weigh the tools on my videos, but this one's a little bit heavy to try and weigh, so I'm going to trust the Makita numbers, which I don't normally do because they're not usually accurate. But 29.8 kgs they're saying this comes in at without the battery on it, which surprisingly is actually lighter than the 18x2, which is 30.7 kgs. Not that you're going to really notice it when it's that sort of weight. And the DLS 111, the 10-inch, what does that weigh? 27, I think. Now this has an RPM of 3,600, whereas the 18x2 model is 4,400, as is that little 10-inch one. Little. So they're both 4,400. This is 3,600. Hopefully that means slower speed, more torque. Do you want to hear what it sounds like? I do. I also want to know if it's actually 3,600 RPM and whether it stays at 3,600 RPM on a 2 amp hour battery, a 2.5, a 4 and a 5, or whether it changes. The LS002G stayed consistent at, what was that one, 4,000? 4,400? Can't remember. I'll have to go have a look. 2 amp hour battery, 3,458. 2.5 amp hour battery, 3,458. Well, that's consistent. 5 amp hour battery. Haven't got the 8 yet. 3,458. Well, that's super consistent. 3 batteries, all the same. Why didn't I do the 4 amp hour? Well, because that's 21,700 cells, so I thought I'd leave that till last, just to see if that extra cell size gave any boost. This 4 amp hour battery has only 1 bar showing. Will it still be able to maintain the speed when it's down that low? Let's take a look. Started off at 3,453 and was slowly dropping, so battery's almost drained, but still holding that full speed, although that full speed was 150-ish less than what it should be. Now that may be down to the accuracy of this rather cheap tachometer, or maybe vagaries with the guard being down or something else. They may have tested it without the blade on it to get to that speed, I don't know. But at least it's consistent across all the batteries, which means there's clever things in here telling it how to control what's going on with the batteries, unlike some tools from some companies. Don't get too nasty in the comments. Just did some more tests, placing this in a different place, shifting my bit of tape on the blade. No difference. 3,458. It does, however, I hate to say it, sound a bit slow. Brake's not terribly quick either, but it is a big massive blade to stop. The DLS 111 sounds like this. Stops quicker and just sounds a little bit faster, a little bit gruntier. And it is of course faster, as I've already stated. I do like the look of the new XGT base with that sort of dark gunmetal colour, and the aluminium just looks darker as well, whereas over on the old 18x2 it was painted this sort of shiny aluminium sort of colour. Just, I don't know, something looks real nice about that. The kerf guides here, much nicer colour as well than this sort of baby blue almost colour. This is much more Makita-y looking than this, and I prefer this dark tinted guard as opposed to the light blue one on the 18x2. Now you will of course already have worked out that it is basically the same design as the 18x2 models. They haven't gone with the new design that they went with the LS002G, which is a shame, and I know a lot of guys love that design and so do I, but I got rid of that saw because I wanted a big one. I like big miter saws because I want to cut big stuff a lot of the time, and I don't want to have to try something else. I want one tool that just does everything, and that's hopefully what this tool now is for me. This saw will be able to cut through just about anything I want to cut through in a nice accurate manner. Save having to do 2 cuts with a circular saw and stuff like that. So this will do a maximum depth of cut of 107 by 363, I think it is. Maybe it's 353. And if you want width, the maximum width, you can get 92mm high by 383, I think it is. They're the exact same measurements as the 18x2 12-inch saw, so you're not getting any size difference at all. It's the same size physically, and it does the same size cuts. If you want to know the physical size difference between a 10-inch and a 12-inch, or a 260 and a 305, this is 670 high approximately. This is 760 high approximately. That's going to annoy my wife because she loves using that saw now, but she hates how high the handle is. Well, this one's 90mm roughly higher than that one, so she might not even be able to reach it. The distance from the front of the handle to the back of the saw, the space you will need to fit this saw in, is 900mm on the 12-inch and 800 on the 10-inch. The width of the 12-inch is approximately 700 with its little arms pushed in, and on the 10-inch it's 600. So basically it's 4 inches or 100mm longer in every dimension. Up, down, side to side, front to back. Oh, I so want to make a cut with this thing, but also at the same time I'm dreading making a cut with this thing. Dreading that first cut. And I shouldn't have to dread the first cut, but after the experience I had with this one, and the experience I know lots of you have had with these Makita miter saws, with these new front rails, they didn't cut straight. And that was something I didn't even realize a miter saw could do. A curved cut. But that's exactly what this one did straight out of the box. It was cutting curved. And I had to adjust this Allen key here, loosen that off, bend these rails, well not bend them, just tweak them so that they're in different places inside this brackety holdy thing, and then do it back up to get straight cuts. Bit of fluffing around was annoying. Once I got it there, it has stayed there on this saw, so that's not too bad, but it was annoying having to do it, and a lot of people returned these saws because of that, and that must have cost Makita a lot of money. So I hope they've put a bit more effort into getting it right on these new ones, because they are super nice tools to use. This has been my favorite tool for a long time. I know impact drivers are kind of like my favorite as well, but I have to use a miter saw every day. If I don't do a cut with a miter saw, I get withdrawals. Sometimes I have to go down to the garage at like 10 o'clock at night. The wife will go, "What are you doing? You're going down to use the miter saw?" I was like, "Yeah, I've got to just go cut up some scrap or something." I just have to use a miter saw each day, else it just doesn't feel right. Miter saws were one of the first tools I ever bought. Apart from a drill, I think the second tool I bought was a miter saw, and I've just loved them ever since. Some people use table saws, some people use miter saws, some people of course use both. I use both, but by far I use a miter saw 100 to 1 times more than I do a table saw. In fact, I don't even know when I last used a table saw. It's covered in so much rubbish and junk. I'm going to have to stop the review here, I'm afraid, because a courier has just handed me a little parcel from Japan. Oh yeah, as much as I said I love miter saws, I think I'm going to have to pause this review while I make a review for this. I'll give you a quick little sneak peek. Oh yeah. If you haven't seen the review for this yet, take a look down in the description and up in the top corner, because I will have done it probably before I release the video for this miter saw. Okay, so another spanner in the works. I'm going to have to change the way I do this video a little bit, because the guy who has purchased my old saw in the back there, he is on his way to pick it up, and I'm not ready for him to pick it up yet. I was expecting these to be sitting on the bench here for a couple of weeks for me to play with them and compare them and all that sort of stuff. But he lives in the middle of nowhere. This is the only time you can get over to do it, and with diesel at $42 a litre at the moment, he'd have to take out a mortgage just to get here, so I can hardly turn him down, plus I'll get a big pile of cash. So I'm going to have to rush this through a bit. So I'm going to have to put my video that I was filming on this on hold and get back to reviewing this by basically just telling you the differences between this and that. Let's do that. I just remembered he's picking up my air compressor too, so I've got to get that damn thing out. My back is killing me. I've just scoffed down a handful of painkillers and anti-inflammatories, so if I start rambling a bit more than usual, that's why. The supports are much beefier on the XGT, but that's not just an XGT thing. Both the 12 inches have better supports than the 10 inches for some reason. I don't know why they couldn't have put this on this, because these are a little bit weak. They sort of sag a bit. Not the greatest for keeping things level. This looks much better, and I hope it is much better. The back fences, as I already mentioned, much more substantial on the 12 inch. I prefer the LXT guide for the bevel on the back here. It's plastic on the 12 inch, which just feels and looks a little bit cheap compared to this, which is just an aluminium looking sticker, I guess, over the top of the aluminium chassis, but it just looks more professional than that. No biggie really. They've gone with the same sort of dust chute system, the 2-part system. It is much bigger on the 12 inch than it is on the 10 inch. Everything's just a little bit bigger on the 12 inch, as you would expect. All the pins and locks and stuff are the same. The dial for getting your depth of cut is unfortunately the same. They haven't used the system that they put on the 8.5 inch, the LS00T2G. Yeah, so that's a bit of a shame. 8.5 inch, 9.25 inch, isn't it? I'm panicking, I've got to get the video done. On-tool storage on the front of both of the tools. Both of these saws bevel left and right, and they both bevel up to 48 degrees. If you want to go the 48 degrees, then you pull this little lever down as you're coming over with your saw, and that gives you that opportunity to go that extra 3 degrees if you need it. Always look out for where the saws bevel left and right. A lot of cheap ones only go to the left, so higher quality saws go left and right. Now, I don't use the right bevel all that much, but when you do need it, super handy. Much easier than trying to flip whole lengths of timber over and realign them and everything. For certain tasks, it's super handy. Both of them have a pin on the side to unlock the right hand bevel. So you loosen your knob, you tilt to the left just a little bit, and then you can push this in and it will then swivel over to the right. That's the same on both tools. Both saws have this little lever that a lot of people don't know what they're for. It's to turn your indents on and off for when you're doing a bevel. See how you've got, 15, 30, 45. You also got 22.5 and 33.9. This thing will help you stop on those in an accurate fashion without you having to fiddle around lifting the saw backwards and forwards trying to get it right. So if you flick that down, when you now get to one of these indents like that, it just automatically locks in place. Bang, ready to go, 22.5 degrees. Pull it out, go to the next one, and it'll go up to 33.9 and 30 and 45 and all that stuff. This is of course the most important distinction between the two tools. Clearly superior on the XGT. They both have AWS, unless of course you got one of the early models that the States got, in which case they didn't have AWS. Next to the AWS on the LXT you can see this little switch which kind of looks out of place. It doesn't really fit in with the rest of Makita's styling, and it looks like a bit of a late addition, and it is a laser. Now, a lot of you hate lasers, and I completely understand, although it is handy at times because you can move it from left to right hand side of the blade, so you can put it where you want, which you can't do with the option that is available on this. So, as you can see here, the AWS is just an AWS. There's no little lever next to it. But if we look down here on the handle, there's a light button. In the same place on the LXT you instead have a battery gauge, because it is annoying to tell if these are charged or not because the battery gauges are on the bottom of the batteries. They're the opposite of the 40 volt, which is on the top, so you can just push it on the top. You don't need a battery fuel gauge down here. So instead they have a light, and they also have a vacuum button. Now the vacuum works in conjunction with your AWS and your AWS vac. So normally when you pull the trigger of the saw, the vacuum will start up automatically. If you don't want it to start up automatically, if you want to just turn the vac on, you can just turn it on with your saw, and that allows you to then just like unplug it, clean up a bit of mess around your bench where your saws sprayed shit everywhere, because these saws spray a lot of shit everywhere, let's face it. Bung it back in, turn it off again. I'm not sure how long it stays on. I don't have an AWS vac, so Makita, if you ever want to send me anything for all these fantastic reviews I do for you guys, then an AWS 40 volt vac would be awesome, because I'm always talking about AWS stuff and I don't have a vac to use it to test it. This is one of the most requested improvements for the Makita saw. The lasers aren't that accurate and they're no good outside, but they do kind of work better inside, I reckon. These are no good outside either. The thing with this laser system is when you turn it on, you can forget you've got it on and just leave it on. It will stay on forever until you drain the batteries. I mean, that would take a really long time, of course, but yeah, it doesn't automatically turn off. This will automatically turn off after, I'm not sure what it is yet, I haven't tested it, but it'll be no more than a couple of minutes. So less chance of draining your battery. Neither one of these systems works very good outside. Lasers, shadow lines, outside and bright sun, they're both useless. It does look like the shadow line is actually better in this light than the laser. Can you even see the laser in the camera? The line is there. On the XGT you can see the light there already. And as I bring it down, it gets brighter and you can see that black line. This is your cut line. So unlike the laser, which has to go left or right side of the blade, this is directly where your blade is. So you can have your line right on that shadow, and that's exactly where your blade's going to hit every time, no matter what. Both saws come with a dust bag, but to use the dust bag you have to disengage one of the dust ports on both saws. And when it comes to the dust port bit, this is just a really basic slide-on one on the LXT, whereas on the XGT it clips on. So it's a little bit nicer. And they're much gruntier than the LS002G, which is a very thin hose coming out of here. Makes it quite easy for this bottom port to block up. Anyway, I've chucked those dust bags on because I'm going to do a cut. And I have to do it here on the bench because I can't shift these things because my back's just... yeah, doesn't like carrying stuff at the moment. The compression on the base of my spine is not good. So I'm going to cut a 4x4 post because that's the first cut I want to do on this new XGT because I can finally do it in one chop. This, you can, if you're lucky, get away with it if it's slightly undersized post and if you angle things just right, you can sort of get it. But it should be a piece of cake for this one. This will be a good test on power as well. So I've got a 5 amp hour battery on here. Two 5 amp hour batteries on here, so that makes them both 36 volt 5 amp hour. Let's do it. Now unfortunately it's a brand new blade. Well, I mean, it's not unfortunate, it's a brand new blade, but this is a brand new blade of course, and it is a 60 tooth blade. On here I have a 42 tooth blade, 45 tooth blade, something like that. The blade's not that old, but I did something with it the other day and I think it's not quite so sharp as it was cutting that bamboo composite. Blunted it a bit quick, I think. Anyway, we will do a test with that. I haven't got time to go out and grab another blade for the test because Rob's on his way, like I said, so it's just what it is. I've never had a double miter station before. I can cut both ends of a piece of wood without having to move the bit of wood. Luxury. Got the slide locked, we're just going to use this like a drop saw. So this is the XGT. First cut. That's nice. Okay, it cut quicker than I thought it would. That lower speed and the 60 tooth blade, I didn't think it was going to cut too quick, but... I'm happy with that. Dust wise, not bad considering no extraction, just using the bag and one port. So yeah, that's not too bad. Let's try the LXT. Now this is a nice dry post, so it's probably shrunk a little bit like I said, and it just about got it, just a tiny little bit on each bottom corner there. Which of course you would eliminate one corner if you had the slide function working. So that particular post you could cut with a 10-inch. It's a pretty good saw, this. These are both great saws. Oh, and I've just thought of something that I forgot to tell you between the two of them, or have I already told you? Tramadol must be kicking in. It's the plates on the bottom for the miters. Let's take a closer look at those. A bone of contention for people who purchase this LXT saw is this mitre plate. Has your detents on it, has indents there for your degrees, your 0, 15, 30, 45, etc. And it's made of aluminium. So guys have been complaining that it wears these out and your saw gets a bit sloppy. I knew that right from the start, so I've been careful using this saw. So whenever I move it, I leave my thumb down on here so that it's not clicking into all those indents as you go past. And then when I get to where I want with the pointer here, I then let go and just gently click it into place. There's no need to go bang, bang, bang through all the stops. And that has meant my plate's in pretty good condition. So with the magnet, with the XGT, bang! Jeez. Oh, she's stuck. It's a good magnet. Damaged it already. So aluminium, clearly a ferritic metal. I'm not sure if it's a hardened stainless or what, because hardened stainless is magnetic, but either way it's clearly much stronger, gonna last much longer, as long as it doesn't rust. Now presumably if Makita make these now for the XGT, you could buy one for your LXT. There is people that have made these out of stainless steel. You can order them. It's a guy in Canada that does them, but presumably now you can just get a proper one straight from Makita. If I can find that anywhere, I will put a link down there. Is there any difference in the dust extraction without an extractor? Looks like there's a bit more there on the LXT, yeah, than the XGT. XGT a bit cleaner in the throat there than the LXT is. I think I might keep the 10-inch. I'm loving the look of having two Mitre Saws on the bench together. What am I going to tell Rob when he gets here? He'll be gutted. It's the biggest Makita tool I've ever sold. I don't sell many of my tools. I usually intend to replace the previous model with the new model. But yeah, if you've watched this channel and you know anything about me, you'll know that doesn't usually happen. And I've made the call. I'm getting rid of this compressor and all the crap that goes with it. Just going to go and find all the crap that goes with it. Because I have effectively replaced it with this. So Rob's going to take that at the same time as he takes the Mitre Saw. And there she goes. She is my drop saw no more. Oh, the new one looks so lonely now. You lost your little friend. Oh, at least I've got some more space though, and a bit more cash to put towards the next tool review. Now is the moment of truth. I'm gonna test to see if it does a curved cut. But before I do that, I can already see I've got a problem here. There's a big gap here because this is sticking out further than the fence is. So I'm gonna have to adjust that before I can even make a cut. I mean, I can move it out of the way, of course. But those are out of whack on both sides of the tool, so those need to be adjusted. This first cut isn't to test whether it's square up and down or like that, but rather just to see if we're going to get the curved cut. I certainly hope not. Got my straight edge. Let's do this. Same fucking problem, Makita. It's not fucking good enough. Fuck me. It was at this point that I completely lost my rag. I was pretty pissed off. Makita had had several years to fix the problem that they had on the 18x2 models and released a 40 volt that didn't cut curved, but they had not done that. They had stuck with the same system and released their flagship 40 volt 12-inch Mitre Saw with a very bad flaw, a very bad fault. In my opinion, not good enough. And I wasn't going to put up with that again. If you want to hear just how angry I was, you can check out the Patreon video, the link to Patreon down in the description. if you want to hear, yeah, just how angry I was. Anyway, time has passed, and it's now 21 months later, and I'll tell you what happened. So I went to Makita. I thought, I am not putting up with a dud Mitre Saw again. I'm not trying to repair this thing and fix it by myself. It shouldn't have to do that. This should not be crooked. So I took it into the Makita service centre, which thankfully is not too far from where I live. Told them the problem, left it with them. And it wasn't too long, maybe a week later, it might have even been the same week. I think I might have dropped it off on the Monday and got it back on the Friday, something like that. I took it in there, told them the problem, left it. When I went in to collect it, they told me they couldn't fix the problem. They couldn't get it right. They couldn't get it to cut straight. And so what they did was they gave me a brand new saw. But not only did they give me the brand new saw, they had it set up out the back in their test area. They got me to do some cuts, make sure I was happy with it. We tested it all first, made sure it was good before I took it home. And then I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to go bung, that it was going to stay right, that there wasn't an issue. Since I've had this saw, I have jammed it several times, had a couple of kickbacks, at least one of which you'll see in this video in a moment. All of which were my fault, you know, just bowed bits of timber and shit like that. It catches, you know what happens. And none of them have thrown the rails out. It's still, thankfully, cutting straight. So I wanted to make sure it was going to stay like that. So that's why this video, I know so many of you have been asking about it for so long. That's why it's taken so long, because I wanted to make sure. That's why it's been 20, 21 months, whatever it's been since I got the replacement. So that I can actually say to you guys, this is a really nice Mitre Saw. I love this thing. I was pissed off that I had to start off with it in the way I did, but it is a very cool saw, and it is one of, I think it is my favourite Makita tool. I love Mitre Saws in general, and I have to come down and use this thing every day. I do love it. Makita didn't know who I was before I took this saw in. They of course now know. And so I've built up a relationship with Makita over the last year or two, thanks to going in there to get this sorted out. So it turned out to be a blessing in disguise, and it works well for them, works well for me, works well for you. Everybody wins. So I've shown you all the features at the beginning of the video. How about we now see it cutting finally? So that was 7 times 100. These aren't 90, they're 100. They're custom cut ones. So yeah, that's pretty good. 7 times 45 by 100 deep. Try doing that on a Milwaukee without it overheating. Stuffed up that there, didn't I? Pisser. Got some bamboo composite scrap here that I'm chopping up to get rid of. I'm using a really blunt old blade that I've been using to cut this stuff, and it just destroys blades like anything. This is just to put the tool under a heavy load to show you how it handles it. So blade's blunt, the material's awful to cut through, so it's going to struggle. I'm going to be pushing down on it really hard, and it's not going to be cutting very quick. We're going to see how the tool handles it. So you could hear it straining there, but didn't cut out or anything. Handled it alright. She's a pretty good saw. Try doing this with a Milwaukee 12-inch cordless Mitre Saw and see if it doesn't overheat. Yikes. Well, that's Milwaukee's revenge for me. Try to be a smart ass. Yeah. What shall I tell the wife? That it was a somebody in a car park. This here and this here. That's where the bit of wood just hit. Fuck. And it's red too. The irony. Fucking hell. You can cut boards up to 380 millimeters wide. As well as that, you can cut through a 4x4 or 100x100 post in one pass. Now, did you hear that? The vacuum started up by itself and turned off by itself. Let's take a look at that. This is the VC004G AWS vac. It takes two 40 volt batteries, but it only needs one to run. So it's a 40 volt tool, not an 80 volt tool. You'll get about 40 odd minutes on full whack with those two 8 amp hour batteries set on the auto with the AWS. When you have an AWS chip inside your AWS tool, when you pull the trigger, the vac will automatically start up. And then after a certain amount of time, it will turn itself off. How cool is that? Four 18 volt batteries, 40 volt adapter, 40 volt Mitre Saw. Let's go. Not only that, you can also do this. 40 volt adapter. Let's plug that 40 volt adapter into a 33.5 amp hour battery. Turn said battery on. We are ready to go. 'Right, I'll try and get this area tidied up and maybe get the saw back to its original position. This is its temporary working position at the moment on a movable table. But I'll try and get it back in its usual spot and tidy so we can wrap this thing up. That's hardwood. And my vac didn't turn on. I forgot to turn on the AWS, damn it. Anyway, this saw is a pleasure to use. It has great capacity, as you can see. I haven't been able to show you everything that this thing does. The video would be hours and hours long. There's so many things, and it ended up a different story, as of course you have heard. But yeah, great capacity, great features. Dust extraction is pretty good. Make sure you turn your vac on though. It does clog up in here, so if you can see that, the bottom chute here does clog up a bit. So make sure you check that if it's not sucking away the dust too well. It is extremely heavy, however. It's a beast of a thing, but once you've got it set up for the day, it is, as I say, a pleasure to use. I tend to use it with the 4 amp hour batteries pretty much exclusively now, because I've got a heap of those, and I don't like it with the big 8 amp hour on there. I don't like the weight on it, especially if you're doing cuts like this. I don't want any extra weight pulling on it, so the 4s seem to be a good fit for me. But as you saw earlier in the video, it doesn't even matter what battery you use, you'll get the same RPM. You're not losing any power really. This thing's well controlled for that. This is a nice bit of wood. Don't get distracted, tools. So this has been the longest ever review I've taken to make. I mean, we're talking 21 months from start to finish. There is another one actually that I've filmed the beginning of that I haven't finished filming the end of yet, which will be about a 3-year video. But if it ever happens. If you want to see even more of this video and this tool, this video I've got the original, if I put everything in it, is 2.5 hours long. But I know no one's going to want to watch that. This isn't, this isn't Titanic. Yeah, it's long, I know. It's already freaking long, but if you want to watch an even longer one on Patreon, check that out down in the description. I'll put links to Patreon. And yeah, that's like an hour long. And I've got a video as well of blades for this thing, which I'll hopefully get done soon. Some different Makita blades and stuff to try out that I've done. I've filmed over the last year or two and haven't got around to making yet either. So yeah, happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that stuff, even though there's still a few more videos to go before Christmas and New Year, I know, but it just kind of feels like the end of the year now to me, now that I've got this video done, because boy oh boy, this one kicked my ass a bit. It's just been nagging at the back of my head, and like about once a week somebody asks about it, and it just keeps eating away at me, and I sort of just never found the time to get to editing it, because there was over 240 files. And yeah, it just was one of those things that just became a bit of a nightmare in all sorts of regards. Anyway, it's done. Thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing if you've made it this far and you've never watched one of my videos before. Can't be too many of you that have done that, but anyway, please consider subscribing, hitting the like button. Heaps more Makita stuff to come. Another couple of cool ones before the end of the year. Just found out something really interesting today, so I'll see if I can do a video about that before the end of the year. And cheers. See you later, guys. If you get one, make sure you check that it cuts straight. Thanks. It's done. It's finally done. Gloves off. Time for a drink. Oh, and one more thing. This last shot, kids, don't try this at home. It's one of those shots, okay? So, yeah. Here it is. See ya. Hopefully that hasn't sort of melted all the edge together. Probably has, but it was fucked anyway. And also I hope it doesn't catch on fire. Better keep the camera running.